Do you feel like you're paying too much in taxes every year, or have a relationship with your current CPA where you only meet them once or just before tax time? Look, I want you to know that there is another solution to paying less in taxes and keeping more of your money. Valard Advisors is a leading fractional CFO and CPA firm that specializes in advanced tax strategies for founders, athletes, and entrepreneurs. Valard Advisors can help you navigate the complexity of business taxes and ensure that you're paying the least amount in tax possible. But this is far more than tax preparation. This is strategy. This is really getting into the data-driven decisions that your business needs to make in order to develop a long-term strategy that aligns for your business and personal goals. Whether you're looking to minimize tax liability, maximize your deductions, or plan for your financial future, Valard Advisors has the expertise and experience to help you get there. Do not wait until tax season. Work with professionals today. Contact Valard Advisors to schedule a consultation.
How do we get there? We don't get there by focusing on our goals. We get there by focusing and making commitments. Because when I go to these sports teams and I speak to them, I'll have them write down their goals and then I make them rip it up.
Welcome to Generation Wealth. I'm Candy Valentino, and I've been building businesses and generating wealth before I could legally order a drink. For more than 2 decades, I've built, scaled, acquired, and exited businesses, all while investing in real estate and building financial freedom. Now I want to help you expand your wealth and give you the proven roadmap to implement today. It doesn't matter if you're a part of Generation X, Generation Y, or Gen Z. It is time to join Generation Wealth. Now let's get started. Guys, as I told you, I am so excited for this interview as we talk to, not only just best-selling author dozens of times, top keynote speaker, but just someone who I trust and respect immensely. So it's such an honor to have you on the show, John. Thanks for being here.
Candy, thanks for having me.
You are right now promoting your book, and this is like you said, the last interview of a lot that you're doing. So it's truly an honor to have you here. And, I feel like through Catherine, I know you because Catherine is one of the few people and I consider a friend. About a year ago was the first time I got to see you in your element. We were at Ed Milet's event. I was backstage with Catherine. Everybody was, talking and having a blast. And you go out and we all stopped. And you were absolutely captivating. And even Catherine, who had seen you so many times, stopped and watched you and was like, whoa, he is on. And when you came off stage, you had an emotional release. And for someone that has been on stage so often, I'd love for you to just talk about a little bit of like what happened. How did you feel that way? And was there something maybe internal that moved you?
Yeah, there was a big event that was happening. Obviously, it was Ed Milet's event. There were a lot of people there in terms of people, peers, and so forth. I know a lot of people were watching online, and I've done a lot of big events before, but for some reason, this was a special event, just a defining moment for me, because it was like the beginning of stepping into, I believe, this new teaching, this new work that I was doing, really going to another level in my work of writing and speaking and just elevating overall. And I believe I've been doing this for a long time, but in so many ways, I felt like I was just beginning again. I felt like a rookie just getting started again. And so it was one of those kind of events where you go in to play for the Yankees and you make it to the major leagues for the first time, and you're just getting going, and boom, you have an amazing game. And that's what that felt like. It felt like a really special game. And I truly believe Ed also gave a really emotional talk that morning. And when he did, I was touched by it. I was inspired by it. And just something within me was releasing just all the stuff perhaps that I've been holding back, all of the feelings of struggling along the way, like my whole journey of just having to work to get to a point where your work is something that people will read, something that they'll share. And it felt like everything in that moment was like, okay, now I'm ready to enjoy it all. I'm ready to have fun with it. I'm ready to love it and to share from a place of power and knowing rather than just thinking. Like I used to think about what I thought was true. And now I know what is true. When I first started writing and speaking, I was sharing what I thought would help teams and organizations and leaders. But now I know what will help leaders. And this book, The One Truth, is really the truth I'm sharing that I know works. I know it makes an impact. So I would say there's were a lot of emotions going into it, but that was the first time I was asked about it. So as I think about it now in process, that's what comes to me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, honestly, too, because to me, it was like, I mean, you've spoken to NFL and all of the colleges and, the Rams and the Vikings, and you're so involved in top level athletes and coaches. And that room wasn't your biggest room. It was you doing a gift for a friend. It wasn't even like, you command such a great fee. And so it was almost inspiring on another level. Like listening to you is inspiring, but then seeing that reaction, I was like, wow, no matter what industry, no matter what level, there's almost like another level for all of us. And it seems like, as you're reflecting now, it seems like that was your other level that you were maybe like realizing at that moment.
I was stepping into. And then just 2 days ago, I did another event that, again, was a really cool sports and leadership kind of conference. And I gave a new talk based on this book, The One Truth. And I talked about whole, WHOLE. And just sharing that talk, I walked out of there. Again, it was a newer kind of event. I was doing it to support a friend, but even felt like that was like a big deal, even though I've spoken to major leadership conferences. I mean, we're talking thousands of people at these conferences where they're big audiences and tons of leaders in the room and so forth. But yeah, when you're giving new ideas and new material and you're sharing it for the first time, there's something new and exciting also about that.
Do you ever feel like sometimes those emotional experiences that come out of nowhere are maybe an indication that you're onto something, or an indication?
Totally.
Yeah.
It's a feeling of, I've been more convicted, more passionate than ever in sharing this new message. Like I've been speaking for a long time. I love talking about positivity. I love talking about the power of positive leadership. Like when I'm speaking to leaders in a room of leaders and I'm talking from a standpoint of leadership, culture, teamwork, and I'm giving them ideas on how to build their culture, how to lead their organizations, the best way to engage their people, how to deal with difficult conversations, how to overcome the energy vampires and negativity that will sabotage the team and organization, and also how to do this at home. I've been doing this more recently where I'm talking to leaders at work and home, and leaders are loving that because a lot of leaders are struggling at home. And I have really the ideas and the insights that help them with work and home. So that's been a lot of fun. But so I love doing that. That's something I truly love. And I will continue doing that for the rest of my life. But something about talking about the one truth, which explains why positive leadership works. It explains why great teams that are united and connected are more powerful, whereas teams that are divided and separate are weak. What I love about the one truth, it's like under the hood. It's behind the curtain that explains how everything works and why it works. So it's much more thought-based. It's very intellectual in a lot of ways, yet profound, but also yet practical. So it's been really fun to talk about and think about. And for some reason, I've not gotten tired talking about. Like I continue to get energized more and more talking about this message, and I even get more nuance with it. As you know, as you become an expert, just like you are with wealth generation and wealth assets and maintaining wealth and building wealth and so forth, you start to see the little nuances and what makes the difference between average and greatness. What's the difference between good and great? And you start seeing those nuances. So there's those little things that you can share that someone hasn't thought about that makes all the difference. It's fun talking about those things.
And I want to make sure that we unpack this because there is so much in the book that, like you said, it's theory and it's thought-provoking and it's inspiring, but there's a lot of practicality in it that people can use in their life, which any listener of this show knows I love that. I always try to get to the implementation, not just the idea. And it's so interesting because working with entrepreneurs and people in leadership too, we see that more than ever, we're connected. And I say that in quotes for somebody that's just listening and not watching the video. We're more connected than ever, but yet we're in a world filled with division, loneliness, anxiety, and you talk in the book about oneness. And this concept of basically, you know, I always say the opposite of addiction is connection. And you take it even further and say about oneness. Can you talk a little bit about how that concept can apply not just in our professional lives, but personally? And what is oneness all about to you?
Well, the reason why we're addicted to things is because there is a disconnection. There's a gap, and we're trying to get this feeling of oneness and of connection. But we're filling that gap with cheap substitutes. We're filling it with things that aren't good for us. We're doing it to try to feel relief. What we really want is restoration. And so as you're addicted, you're seeking connection. And addicts are actually big seekers who are looking for the oneness I'm talking about. So everything in life comes down to oneness or separateness. Do I feel one? If I feel one connected, I feel power, joy, peace, love, confidence, and courage. When I feel disconnected, I feel stress and fear and anxiety and worry. And this chronic stress that so many people who are struggling with their mental health and also just with everyday life, it's what they experience. And the root for the Greek word of anxious means to separate and divide. And so when I'm anxious, I feel separate. I feel divided. And so negative thoughts and these fearful emotions separate us and divide us and weaken us. And so you can start to see how everything in life either moves you towards oneness or moves you towards separateness. And in life, when you understand this and you see how this plays out, you'll start to see it everything in your life. As I share in the book, I give examples like a leader with integrity comes from the word integer, which means whole and complete. So a leader with integrity has wholeness and completeness. They feel one. There's a lot of connection there. There's no gaps in their character. There's no gaps in what they say and what they do. Now go to the narcissist. The narcissist actually feels separate. And because they feel separate, they focus on self. They don't care about anyone else because they don't feel like they're a part of anyone else. And so they're focused on their own protection. And life to them is about themselves, and they see other people as objects that they can or want to control or to protect themselves from. And even at the neurological level with a narcissist, they actually cut off certain parts of their brain. So at the neurological level, there's a separation that is occurring at the soul level. And a narcissist also has felt and dealt with pain and trauma and these experiences that cause them to have these kind of wounds in their soul, these holes in their soul that actually create this separation. Because what is a wound? But a separation that causes them to feel separate. And then if you look at narcissists, they also actually suffer from mental health disorders that other people with mental health disorders suffer from. So they experience the same kind of symptoms: depression, loneliness, isolation, and what? Disconnection. So when we move from oneness to separateness, we move from positive to negative. This is a big part of the book. When you understand this, it explains mental health. We move towards separateness. There's going to be more negative thoughts and more of an unhealthy lifestyle, and also an unhealthy soul that needs to be healed. As we move towards oneness, there's wholeness, there's healing. And negative thoughts separate us, positive thoughts uplift us, fear divides, love unites, and it can all be explained in terms of oneness and separateness. And I give tons of other examples, like a relationship and marriage. When you feel connected, you feel one, you feel powerful. There's a lot of love there. The minute you start to feel disconnected and divided, you feel separate, and that weakens your relationship. And you'll see this in everything. In social media, what happens in social media? You look at social media, and we always blame social media. We say social media is the problem. Social media is not the problem. Social media reveals the separateness that you feel, and at times it can make you feel separate. But so could driving home and seeing your neighbor who got a nice car, and now you're jealous of your neighbor's nice car. It happened for years. Before social media, you would have the cool kid in school that had the nice clothes and all the friends, and you felt separate and jealous when you compared yourself to that person. Yeah. The only thing with social media is now we're doing it all the time and every day. So we're bombarding ourselves and our soul with all of these feelings of separateness, inadequacy. And so we don't feel validated. So we're seeking validation because we feel so separate. So what do? You return to the social media like a drug, looking for more and more validation, only to feel worse and worse and more separate. The answer is to not worry about social media, but to look within and know your identity and know who you are and remind yourself that you're one, and actually start to do things that allow you to live your path, your purpose, to focus on your journey, to have more trust and live with that trust instead of fear, and tune, as we talk about in the book, tune into the positive instead of the negative.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's so good. I just feel social media is a magnifier, right? We've already experienced it, like you said. I've never heard someone articulate it like that. I love that. All it does is it just shows us more of that, the kid in school, your neighbor or whatnot. And you talked about separateness, right? The opposite of oneness. And I think you even shared, and I know the book has a lot of examples of how to take the steps, the action steps towards more oneness in your life. But is there anything that, you know, you'd mentioned addiction and all of these other divisions and stuff too. And I often say sometimes one addiction that most people don't think of, we think of drugs, we think of sex, we think of alcohol, but there's also destination addiction, right? This motivation, like that we're going to get motivated to be inspired to achieve the next goal and get the next level and do the next this or that. And I feel like I find so many people on this destination addiction. And you said something I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about goals being overrated. And how goals can truly become a replacement of addiction. But yet it's such this, opposite, because here you're talking with the Rams and the Vikings and all of these pro athletes that, what are their goals? It's got to be MVP and the Super Bowl and championships. Can you maybe unpack what your thoughts are about goals being overrated and what we really should be looking for instead?
Yeah, goals are good. It's good to have a vision, a mission of where you're going. Like, where am I going? And why am I going there? We don't get burned out because of what we do. We get burned out because we forget why we do it. So we have our why. When you know your why, you'll know the way. You're not going to let obstacles get in the way. You have a vision. What do you want to build? Like, what do you want to create in the future? What do you want to become? It's great to have that. But at the same time, how do we get there? We don't get there by focusing on our goals. We get there by focusing and making commitments. So your commitments are greater than your goals. Because when I go to these sports teams and I speak to them, I'll have them write down their goals and then I make them rip it up. They're like, what?
They can't like that.
At first they get mad. I'm like, all right, just hold on. Like, calm down. I look at the exit door where it is. But no, I got this. I'm safe. And then I explain to them, listen, tell me about your goals. And they tell me their goals, MVP, this many yards. I go, every player in the NFL or in the NBA or Major League Baseball has the same goals written down pretty much. So will your goals take you to where you want to go? No, but your commitments will. Now tell me what you're committed to. Because again, with the wealth situation, I have this goal. I want to make so much money. I want to save so much money, but I've got to commit to saving money. I've got to commit to putting money away. I've got to commit to a lifestyle where I spend less than I make. And as a result of that, I can take that money and now start to save it and generate wealth. So it's the commitment to the process that leads to the goal, that leads to the success. And then I ask the players, all right, what are you committed to? And I had one guy say, I'm going to be committed to eating better. I find during the season, I actually start to eat poorly and my body starts breaking down. Great commitment. I'm going to eat better. Another guy said, I'm going to spend more time in recovery. I don't take care of my body. I don't spend time recovering and I wind up getting injured. So I'm going to do this. The top quarterback said, I'm going to watch more film. I need to spend 10, 15 minutes more a day and watch more film just to get even better. Great. 10 to 15 minutes over time is going to have a huge impact and will take you to and surpass your goals. So commitments are greater than goals. And this idea of destination, being addicted to that. Yes, we're addicted to the destination, but we don't focus or love the process along the way. And too many people fear the outcome, but they don't love the process. And so because you're fearing the outcome, you're weaker in the moment because you're worried about what people are thinking. You're worried about the outcome. You're worried about messing up. You're worried about mistakes. This happens on social media a lot as well. I'm worried about what people are going to think of me. Don't worry about any of that. Don't fear it. Decide to love it. I'm going to love the moment. I'm going to love this opportunity. That's what I said in that talk that day. I'm going to love speaking and love this moment and love making an impact. And that's what I'm going to focus on, not the fear of what people are thinking. And the minute you focus on love, what happens? Fear dissipates. Love casts out fear. This is my number one mental toughness strategy. Love it, don't fear it. The minute you focus on love, because love casts out fear, you will perform at a higher level. But I want to say something also about wealth addiction too, because there's something that could be there as well. There's healthy wealth generation, and it can be unhealthy, just like in anything. I know this is your area of expertise. I was at this event. It was a mastermind, and there was a woman there that was really successful. And after my talks, I talked about the hole in our souls and being healthy and whole instead of unhealthy and so forth. And she said, John, I have all these negative thoughts that come to me whenever I'm bored, whenever I have a downtime. And she goes, so what I do is I keep starting more new businesses so I'm not bored, and I keep making more and more money and generating more and more wealth, and I'm crushing it, but I keep doing it so I don't have this time of negativity where negative thoughts are wreaking havoc on me. And what I said to her was, well, that makes sense, because when you're bored, the gap that you have between the wholeness you want and the separation you feel, when you have that gap, what's happening is you're now filling it with more and more businesses. And that's great that you're making money. I think it's better to do that. I'd rather you have wealth addiction than drug addiction. Right. So good. Make a lot of money. But at the same time, if you don't heal it, it could still sabotage you, because you will continue to do it, where eventually it will become really unhealthy and your lifestyle will fall apart. Your life will fall apart. Your relationships will fall apart. And that's what happens to a lot of people. So what we talked about is the hole in her soul and what's really causing it. And I was right on target when I said what it was. She has trouble trusting. And so we talked about how she would need to really start to work on that process. And the book explains that, the healing, the love, the forgiveness. And as you move towards that oneness, connection, and wholeness, you can begin the process of doing that. Now, again, go out and make money, but have the ambition be healthy ambition, not I'm doing it so I can fill the gap, because anytime I'm bored, I get really negative and down.
To fill the void, right? Because
Yes.
then what will happen is, for some reason, if you fill the void with that business, and maybe you have one that's not successful, now you're going to still try to fill that void with something else. Can you give us just a little snapshot? I know they can read it in depth, but just a few things, if someone's listening now, which I know someone listening is going to be like, whoa, that just hit me in my soul. I know that I'm doing this. What are maybe some of the things that people are experiencing that's creating the hole? And what are some of the things they can do to start to bridge it and fill it naturally and healthy?
So what are they doing that's creating it? Well, a lot of times it's not what they're doing that's creating it. It's what has been done to them. And a lot of times it's a betrayal that we have felt and experienced. It's trauma that we've experienced. It's painful and negative experiences that we've experienced. It's a feeling of less than, of our identity, of believing that our outcome, our performance defines us. It's a feeling of unworthiness. You know, people who feel unworthy and also perfectionist are actually the same at the root cause. They both feel unworthy. The person who is a unworthy person who doesn't take action, they just retreat from life and they feel unworthy, so they don't do anything. The perfectionist actually feels unworthy, but now they have to work really hard and produce incredible things to feel validated and recognized, to compensate for the unworthiness that they feel. And so they're two sides of the same coin. So it's just understanding that. And the more you understand that, then you could start to identify yourself with who you truly are. You are loved. There is a plan for your life. You're not an accident. Your identity should not be determined by your performance, by the uniform you wear, by the success you've created. I just spoke to a bunch of interns the other day in this venture capital office, and these are all high performers, Ivy League, future graduates striving to get the next big investment banking job, right? And we talked about this very thing, and I said, when Superman took off his Superman outfit, who was he? And they're like, oh, Clark Kent. I said, no, he was still Superman. He was Superman on the inside. And you are who you are on the inside. That's what matters most. And guess what? I believe in God. I'm a person of faith. And I know that God put greatness within you, and you're here to do great things. Why? Because that greatness is within you, and you're made in the likeness and image of God. And so knowing that, okay, there's greatness within me, I want to do great things. We just have the voices that say we're not great. We're not enough. We're not going to achieve it. We don't deserve it. And as a result of that, we believe those lies. So one of the big things to do is speak truth to the lies on a daily basis. I learned this from Dr. James Gills. I talk about it often. He's the only person on the planet to complete 6 double Ironman triathlons. That's a double Ironman, which means you do an Ironman, a day later do another one. And the last time he did it, he was 59 years old. And he was asked how he did it. And he said this: I've learned to talk to myself instead of listen to myself. I've learned to talk to myself instead of listen. So if I listen, I hear all the fear, the negativity, the doubt. But if I talk to myself, I can feed myself with the words and the encouragement that I need to keep on moving forward. And that's what we need to do, because the lies are going to come in. You start having some success, and the lies come in. Oh, you don't deserve this. You're not worthy. You're never going to make it. You're a fraud. Whatever it may be, it just comes in. And some people even say that to you. There'll be a lot of naysayers out there. But Gandhi said, I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet. And neither should you. So speak truth. Don't listen to the lies. And that's just one thing that you could do on the step to finding wholeness and the path to wholeness. But just being aware, like being aware of what we're talking about, the oneness and separateness, and understanding the separateness that you feel. And so often it's because of this thing that's been broken within you. But to also know that you're not broken, like nothing needs to be fixed. It's actually coming back to the wholeness that you've been and are, and finding that healing and wholeness within you. And once you do, it's incredible how you can start to move in that direction. And that only happens through love and forgiveness. So we heal in a loving relationship. Relational psychology tells us we heal in a loving relationship. So can you heal with a stranger? No, it has to be a loving relationship. Well, guess what? As we connect with other people in a community, that's really important. Real loving relationships help us heal. So connecting with other people is really important. And then spiritually, if I got to say this, if God is a stranger, can you heal? No, it has to be a personal relationship, a personal God. And when you truly know that there's a God that loves you and has a plan for you, that really begins the process of healing. And that's what happened to me. I had to look towards and move towards forgiveness, towards loving myself and allowing God's love to move through me and to receive it. So often we don't receive it. I had to learn how to receive it. And I started to allow the healing to take place when I did that.
So good. That is just so powerful. If anyone didn't catch all of that, pause this and rewind it, because there's so much wisdom to unpack there. Like I can't even recap it all, but this whole process of oneness versus separateness and how we can move towards more oneness and more connection, it's literally the complete opposite of what we're hearing on social media, on the internet, right? I mean, there's so much division, like division's never been greater. There's so much separateness, like to the point where if you disagree with someone politically or your belief, like you can't even have a conversation about it anymore. And I feel like it's just creating more separateness. And, you know, I heard you say once, I told you I did a lot of research for our interview. I heard you in one of the interviews say, what we need the most, we resist the most.
Yes.
And I thought, wow, that is so true. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, is why you think that is. Why do you think the things that we need the most to have more oneness, to be more whole, or sometimes the very things we resist having the most?
Because this life, this world, this existence, what's happening is there's a force that's always trying to divide and separate, and there's a power that's always trying to unite. And that is the ultimate battle. We see it in the movies. There's a battle of good versus bad, good versus evil. There's positive versus negative. There are two main frequencies, the positive frequency and the negative frequency. It's why everything goes towards positive or negative. It's why if you're positive, sometimes people hate you. If you're negative, right, you don't like anyone. And if you're positive or fake positive, that's not good either, right? So it's real positive and real negative. And that's a journey that we're all on. And that's the two main frequencies we're tapping into. And that's the journey of life. How do I move from negative to positive? How do I overcome adversity and obstacles and challenges and the pain of my past to overcome the separateness, to move towards oneness? And that is the journey of life. So the negative road is the easy road. So there is no resistance there. You easily go towards the negative road. And if you can choose that path, you will gladly go down that. Well, you won't gladly, but you will willingly go down that path, and life will let you go down that path. The harder road, the more difficult road, the more worthwhile road is the positive road. And anything that is worthwhile is a lot harder. If you notice anything in life, anything is easy, right? It's easy to take drugs. It's harder to work out and get bigger naturally and healthier naturally. It's easier to take a pill. It's harder to be disciplined, eat healthy every day.
Yeah.
It's actually easy to be negative. It's harder to be positive when you're facing challenges. So the resistance is going to be greater, and it's going to be harder because it's more worthwhile. And it's part of the journey. Like the minute you decide, I'm going to be positive, what happens? You get tested. Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, really, John? You're going to be positive? Meanwhile, then you get hit. Bam, bam, bam. Let's really see if you're going to be positive. Yeah. And that is the journey of life. You will be tested, and you will face tests throughout your life to test you to see, is it real? And also to give you a choice. Am I going to choose faith and trust, or will I choose fear and doubt? And that's why it's the ultimate road that we're all on. It's the ultimate journey of life.
And everything you're saying, for anyone that's listening, entrepreneurs, investors, this applies to being in business, being an entrepreneur, because if you're not committed to the journey, if you don't love the journey of building a business and being an entrepreneur, it's going to be really hard when life takes a turn or your industry shifts or all of a sudden market conditions aren't the same as they used to be. But if you love the process of it, you will outrun, outlast, outsurvive anyone in your industry, and you'll have a lot more fun doing it.
That's what I love about businesses and talking to businesses, because it's no difference than sports. Like, you're going to face competition. You're going to face setbacks. You're going to have things that do not go well in your business at times. You're going to hit market conditions like right now. I speak to tons of companies in their conferences when they're dealing with situations like right now. I was just with a company. Never in their history have they dealt with inflationary rates as the way they are right now. And it totally is affecting their business. What do you do in that moment? Like, you can't control the inflation that's happening. I talked to all these mortgage companies in 2007, 2008, when I was just getting started.
Oh my gosh.
That was the beginning of my career speaking, when all these companies were dealing with the Great Recession.
Yeah.
I was emerging. I was busy as ever during that time. I thrived during the recession. And that's when my career sort of would blossom, because here I was sharing this message of, let's control what we control. Let's be committed to the process. Let's focus on our business. Let's not allow the negativity to bring us down. Let's not allow the setback to hold us back. Let's just keep moving forward, and we will thrive, because change is always going to happen. I talk a lot about change. Change is going to happen. When change happens, a lot of people resist the change, or they get crushed by the wave. Yeah. The key is to ride it, embrace the change. Embrace it, and then you'll ride it to a successful future if you embrace it. I think about Kellogg's and Post, two cereal companies during the Great Depression. The Great Depression hits, and what happens? Well, Post is the juggernaut. Kellogg's is the upstart at the time. Post gets very defensive. They pull back on advertising. They're not doing R&D. They're very defensive. They have the curse of experience, is what I call it. The Kellogg's company, they are all about the rookie mindset. They believe anything is possible.
Blissfully naive.
They were naive. They see, you know what, this is an opportunity. They start advertising on the radio, the major medium at the time. They create Rice Krispies. They were doing a lot of R&D. Rice Krispies was born during that time. Within 4 years, Kellogg surpasses Post as the number one cereal maker and has never looked back. So these times are opportunities for entrepreneurs, for businesses to be more positive. And here's the deal. Being positive is a competitive advantage. It is a real competitive advantage. Optimism is a transfer of your belief to others. Leadership is a transfer of optimism and belief to others. So it's incredible when I can be optimistic, great leadership, I transfer my belief, and then together we rally our team. And we go out through the adversity, through the circumstance, and we create our future. And guess what? Those who are negative, those who are pessimistic, they're not going to do it. Pessimists do not change the world, right? It's the optimists that do. And that's why it's so important now more than ever. So I love that you said that in terms of businesses, entrepreneurs, because when I speak to them, like, these messages ring loud and clear to them, because they're like, you're trying to build a business. You're trying to create a product. You're trying to serve your customers. You have to hire people. You deal with customer support. You're going to have breakdowns. You're going to have days where it seems like everything goes wrong in that one day. And that's going to happen. And there'll be market conditions that are always conspiring against you. There'll be outside forces that try to sabotage your culture. And that's why you got to continue to build your culture, build your leadership, build your team, create oneness so you'll be more powerful with your team.
I love that. And I love the post-Kellogg story. I nerd out on all that stuff and did not know that story.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. I love it. And it goes to show, because so often people hear these positive quotes, it's like there's opportunity around you and focus on what you can control. But when you hear stories like that, that's the application of the idea. That's the implementation, the action that was taken on that idea, because change is inevitable. But the fact whether we grow or progress is not. So I love how that's a great story that is the implementation of the idea. And you talked a lot about, obviously I think anyone listening knows that you believe in God, that you have a relationship with God, and I know everybody calls that something different. But you're also big on energy. You've energy has been a part. I think it was your second book was Energy Bus, which has now sold millions.
Energy Bus is my most popular book.
It sold millions of copies. And so I think that I would love to just talk about, because I've had this question asked, and I don't think we've ever talked about this on the show, but you talking about spirituality, you making it apparent in your conversations with your interviews and on your social, do you feel that that's held you back or took your career on a different path, or that you could have done maybe better, even bigger stages, had you not talked front and center about your relationship and your beliefs?
I can't say that I would do anything differently and that I've been held back in any way. It's hard for me to, when I've been a 15-time Wall Street Journal bestseller. So my books have made the Wall Street Journal bestseller list many times. Energy Bus hit the list last week, 16 years after coming out.
Wow.
I've been very honest about my faith. When I'm speaking at businesses and conferences like that, I'm not going to share my faith. It's what drives me, but I know I'm there to share principles and practices to help them grow, to help them get better. So I know what's appropriate based on the event and the time. On podcasts or radio interviews, or if I'm asked about it, I'll talk about it. And this book, there's book 1, book 2, book 3 in this book. So there's one book and there's like 3 sections. And in book 1, it's high state of mind, low state of mind. Book 2 is all about the one truth, explaining oneness and separateness. And book 3 is the solution to the separation. And in book 3, I do share the ancient truths and the understanding from biblical truths to explain how it's the same truths that you'll find in science and psychology and consciousness and energy. And it all melds together. And when you are looking for the truth, if it is the truth, you'll see it and find it everywhere. And that's what I share. And I even say in the book, I didn't write this to convince you to be a Christian or a follower of Jesus like I am. But in writing it, I realized that there is the solution to the separation. And once you understand what the separation is and what the solution is, it all makes sense. And it's hard to deny. But I'm not trying to convince anybody of a religion. I'm trying to help them understand that the key is connection and oneness and love. And that's the most important thing. So for me, I really just want to help people heal. I want them to find healing and wholeness. And if you have the solution, then you should share it. So that's what I'm doing in sharing this book. But big on energy. Like if you truly understand the nature of our reality and you understand that we are living in an energetic field and we live in an energetic reality. I mean, Candy, how are we making sense through this podcast even right now? How are we making sense of this world when we're just looking out at the beach like I am right now and seeing the trees? Well, guess what? Those trees, just energy. The water is just energy. What am I made up of? Just energy. What are you made up of? Just energy. So if you think about it, 100 trillion energy vibrating cells. We make sense of this world through vibrations, frequencies, wavelengths, signals that are sent from the optic nerve and the auditory nerve to our brain that then makes sense of it and then creates visual maps and hearing sounds that we then give meaning to, that we then make sense of this world that we're experiencing. It's wild when you think about it. It's very much like the Matrix when you really think about it. So from within, we have a mind and a soul. The mind is not the brain. The mind and the soul is how we're experiencing this reality. And the mind soul is driving the operating system, or I would say, yes, the hardware and the operating system in the brain. And we're firing synapses that is allowing us to experience what we're experiencing and giving meaning to everything we're experiencing. Once you understand that, okay, and my body turns to dust when I die. Literally, my body disappears. So my parents have both passed on. One day they're here, the next day they're gone. Okay, where did they go? Like, where do you go when you die? People don't think about death enough. They actually don't realize how strange it is. Like, to me, it's very strange that you're here one day and you're gone the next.
Yeah.
And then we talk about helping the next generation and the next generation after that. Well, guess what? The next generation is all going to die too.
Yeah.
And then my grandkids are going to die, and the next generation is going to die after that. So we want to, help people and create a great life, but everyone that we create a great life for is also going to die. So what's the purpose of life? What's the meaning of life? Yeah. And the meaning is we're meant to create from the inside out. So your mind and your soul is meant to create this reality, and all that you experience and healing takes place in the mind and the soul. And once you understand that, our existence is actually more spiritual than physical. And so if you want to heal and find wholeness, guess what? Recognizing that you are a spiritual being is what will lead you towards that healing and wholeness. The more you actually feel like I'm this physical being that never dies, that actually creates more and more separation, because the ultimate spiritual understanding is we're all one. We're all spirit. We're all soul. We're all love. And we come back to that oneness. That's when there's love and there's power in our lives. The more we actually buy into the lie and the fear and the separation, what that leads to is powerless. And so we become more and more powerless. And that's how people are going through this life. So someone said, I feel like you, in this short book, literally, you gave me the secrets to the universe, and you now allow me to be a Jedi in this world the way I see it. And guess what? I hope I do, because once you understand that, you're going to make a lot more money. You're going to have a lot more wealth. You're going to have a lot more success. Yes. You're going to be a better leader. You're going to build a better team. You're going to be happier, more positive, more fulfilled. Instead of going through life timid and fearful, anxious, worried, and stressed, you're going to go through life with power and peace and joy and purpose, oneness instead of separateness. And I don't think anyone could argue with that. So whatever you believe, read the book, be open to it, and allow it to help you live with that power.
Oh, I love it. And I love that in the beginning, when I asked you that question, you touched on how successful you've been. I mean, we're just going to call it like it is, 28 books, like over half of them have hit all of the lists. And you've had such an amazing career. You speak to all of these NFL teams and so many of the great people in the space. And I often wonder when I talk to someone who has achieved so much success, not just achieving it, right?
Right.
I get so curious to know, because you don't need to speak on another stage. You don't need to do another podcast interview. You don't need to write another book if you just wanted to go hang out at the beach with Catherine for the rest of your life and be good. What keeps you going? What do you find is your purpose that you want to keep showing up for?
That's like a mic drop last question, I can tell, because I love that question, because you know what? I think about that often. Some days I go, it'd be nice to just go hang out. Yeah. Like I think about like Catherine and I would love to go to Europe, but I'm so busy with the speaking and the traveling. Now Catherine's speaking and we're busy doing that. And sometimes we'll look at each other and go, we need to relax at some point and find some time to just chill out a little bit. But you're right. I don't need to do that anymore. I've accomplished more than I ever thought I would in my life, to be honest. I never thought I would accomplish all this. I never thought I would write all these books. I'm someone who moved from separateness to oneness. I've lived this journey. I have felt separate. I've felt anxiety and fear and worry and doubt. And there were many moments that I did want to give up on this journey. So people need to understand that. I'm successful now, but along the way, there were so many struggles and so much time of doubt and so much fear along the way. But what I did was I learned and I grew. And I started to practice a lot of these ideas that I share in this book. The thank you walk that I started doing in 2001, 2002, after Catherine almost left me because I was so miserable and negative, and agreed to change and begged her to stay. And I agreed to change and become more positive. I've been doing that since that time. And that one thing of walking every day and practicing gratitude and praying, tuning into every day, tuning into a greater power, wisdom, and ideas that were not coming from me. And the more I tuned into, what happened? The renewing of my mind. Renewal. What do people need now more than ever? Renewal of their minds. Learning to take every thought captive. Not allowing the negative thoughts to take me captive. Taking the positive thoughts captive. Because I was losing the battle for my mind for years. And it's why I wasn't successful. It's why I was almost bankrupt. It's why I was struggling. So the principles I share here are what truly changed my life. And I know they've impacted so many other people's lives as well, because I've coached many of them throughout the last 18 years. So doing this work has not only made me better, but it's helped make others better. And so seeing that and knowing that as I move towards oneness, how I found wholeness and healing and healed the betrayals of the past and the pains of the past and forgiven the people who have hurt me in the past. And moving forward, I've become someone who is much more whole. Do I still have wounds? Of course. I'll always have the wounds. Everyone will. But I know when they're being revealed and when they're sort of being exposed. And then what you do is you move towards a place of recognition, wholeness and healing, forgiving and loving and prayer and doing things and surrender really is a big part of it, where you know you're not in control. And the more you move forward with that, you move forward with power and peace. So what keeps me going? Why am I still doing this? Because I've realized this is my purpose. Like, this is what I'm here to do, that I know I'm going to die one day. And I know that while I'm living, my job every day is to make the world better and make people better and help them get better. And so I'm going to do this to the day that I die. I'm going to invest in people. I'm going to pour into people, because every moment is an eternal moment to make an eternal impact. Every moment. And so you can make that difference in this moment right here, right now. It doesn't matter what I did 20 years ago, 10 years ago. What am I doing today to make that impact? Because that's an eternal moment. If we're all going to die, and I know I'm going to die, well, guess what? Until that time, I'm going to do everything I can to make earth like heaven and bring heaven to earth, which is what I feel my faith calls me to do. And how do we do that? Oneness and love and purpose and joy. Now, you may see someone say something mean to me on Twitter, and I may respond. They may say, well, John's not so loving in that moment. You're right. In that moment, I fell for the lie. I took the bait. And it happens to all of us. And that's why we're not perfect. But I know I'm at my best when I'm focusing on love and oneness. And even after that moment, I'll get back to that, and get back to that and look to seek a resolution instead of experiencing the fight or the separation.
So good. And I'll tell you, if everyone just took that one piece, it would change their life. How can you go into this moment, this interaction, this conversation with your team, with your kids, with your spouse, and how can you make that a better interaction and create more oneness? Like, if we just did that, imagine what the world would be like if we all just focused on that.
Totally. Remember this. Appearance is temporary. Essence is eternal. So it's our love is eternal. Like, even no matter, you can't take the money with you, but what you do with the money and the love that you have while you're making it, the love that you have while you're investing it, the love that you have while you're doing what you're doing with it, that's actually what lasts. The money won't last. The money gets passed on, but eventually the money may run out. It may, again, it may not. If you have great assets, you have great protections over time. A lot of family offices are making sure that they're preserving capital over time and so forth. Yeah. So that's good. But at some point, like, your money and you owning it is going to run out. But what you did with it and the love you did with it, and if you love investing and you love making it, you love sharing it, that's what lasts.
I love that. And just for everyone that's listening too, like, sometimes you hear people talk about these concepts, but they don't actually apply. I don't know if you've met people like that, where their front stage is really great, but like behind the stage, they don't really match what they're teaching. And I just want to just in transparency to everyone, just share how much I think of you and of Catherine. And I don't even know if you know this, but you were literally like my first domino in this whole space. Like, I have the book, the podcast, like the speaking really came from, you didn't know who I was. One person recommended me to you to speak on the Power Positive Summit.
Yep.
And I remember, I think it was 2021. I had never spoken before. I even said, I said to Daniel, I was like, I'm not a speaker. I don't know what to say. And he's like, just share from your heart. And I shared, and he sent me a text, and you sent me a text. Like, that was really great. And I was like, oh, they're just being nice. And then when you invited me back the next year, I was like, oh, I must not have done so bad. But because of it's just so interesting. That interaction put me on stage. Somebody paid me an insane amount to come speak to their group. From there, somebody saw me speak. Daniel, turned into a book, like one conversation about the book. And so I just want to, like, you're not just telling people to do this, but you literally practice this. And you have been such a gift in my life in just the way that you show up and truly do love on people. I just wanted to acknowledge you for that and thank you for that and just being who you are, because you truly mean the world to me. You and Catherine, I always said anything you need, ask, because I think the world of you both.
Thanks, Candy. That's awesome. Really means a lot. But you were awesome. And when we saw you on the summit, we've done this long enough. We know when someone has it, and we're like, all right, she has it. She's real. She's transparent. She's got great content, great information. And just the fact of what you're doing now and the impact you're having now was proof of our belief. Like, we believed it, but now you've actually shown proof of concept, which is so cool. Yeah, and you're making it happen, which is so awesome. And I know Catherine loves you, and we think the world of you. So yeah, so thanks for saying that. And I think that is important. We are who we are. We have nothing to hide. We're always willing to share our flaws, our mistakes, how we can get better. And when you're real, no one could ever attack you, because when you're actually exposing who you are and your own faults, no one can attack you in your faults. That's so right. We know what we do well. We know where we need to improve, and we're always working on it. But we are very real, and we do care about people. And I am doing this for definitely the right reasons. And I know that. And I wrote this book clearly for the right reasons. And I do want to sell millions of copies. I tell people all the time, yeah, I am going to print my book. People, oh, you just want to sell your book. No, I don't want to sell a book. I want people to read the book. I want to promote the book. And as an author, you make about $2 a copy, as you know. You don't make a whole lot. So if you sell 1 million copies, all right, you do well. Like, okay, but it's not like you're ever going to really get rich off a book unless you sell J.K. Rowling's kind of copy books, like copies of books. But so you do it for the message and the mission. And I think if you're only going to do it for a short time, or if you only do it for a short time, that reveals, okay, well, you're really serious about it. It's like the one-hit wonders are done, but the people are still playing music. Yeah. Those are the real artists that are doing it for the love. Yeah. And I look at Ken Blanchard, one of my mentors, who's still 83 years old. And the other day he told me he can't travel somewhere anymore to go speak, but he's still doing Zooms. So the guy is still Zooming to make an impact. And I said to myself, you know what? If I live that long, that's going to be me too. I'm going to do that as well.
I love it. Well, I want to get this book into so many hands. And then I have one final quick question at the end. Tell us where we can find you, where we can find the book. And then we're going to do a little giveaway with our audience as well. So anyone that's listening to this, screenshot this, tag John, tag myself, share it on your stories. We'll pick 10 winners, and we're going to send 10 copies of your book out. But for those people that don't win the copies, tell them where they can find it.
Thanks, Candy. They can go to getonetruth.com. That's getonetruth.com. And here's the cool thing. You get the book, you get the free action plan, and the resources that go along with the book right now if you get a copy. So we want to give you the action plan so you can put these ideas into practice. And I just hope you love the book and would love to hear what you think when you read it.
Awesome. And we will link all of that up in the show notes, as well as your Instagram handles and everything, so that they can tag you. I know that this is going to change so many lives. I'm super excited for it to outsell the Energy Bus and do even more millions of copies. And we always just ask our guests one final parting question, because the name of the podcast is Generation Wealth. So what does, in this point in your life, this part in your journey, what does the definition of wealth mean to you?
Wow. Wealth is an exchange of energy. So wealth is you have the money to be able to do what you want to do and to help who you want to help. I love that I can say, okay, I can write a check to this organization. I can write a check to this organization. Catherine says, I want to support this organization. I love that we have the means to do it. It doesn't mean for me building one more real estate asset in my portfolio. Although I'm investing in real estate and I love it. And you've been a great role model in doing that. And I'll do that. And I think that's great to do that. But I'm always focused on the eternal, because I know, okay, I have one more property. Eventually I'm going to die and I won't own those properties. They'll just be passed on to my kids. So I want assets, and then I want wealth to be able to then give and support and help others along the way.
I love that. Thank you so much for showing up for who you are and for what you bring to the world. You've been such a blessing in my life, and I just want to thank you for your time today on the show as well.
Thanks, Candy.
All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode. And if you love this episode, I'm asking you for one huge favor. Share it. Tag me on social at Candy Valentino, or if you thought of someone during this episode who might benefit from the content, text it to them, send it to them. Make sure that you are tagging your friends in the comments if you see it on social. I would be so grateful if we could get this out into more hands, more ears, and to more people in the world. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Generation Wealth.